Snowflakes still clung to Ned Stark's cloak when he stepped into the dim-lit chamber of Robert Baratheon. Winter was slowly creeping south, but what chilled him more than the wind was the strange summons he had just received from his oldest friend, the King of the Seven Kingdoms himself. Robert's eyes were tired, not drunk for once, but grave, as if carrying a burden too heavy for even a king's shoulders. The fire crackled behind them, casting long shadows on the stone walls of Winterfell. "Ned," Robert began, not with cheer, but with caution, "I didn't come all this way just to make you hand of the king." Ned's brows furrowed. "Then why am I here, Robert?" Robert looked away, pouring wine, but not drinking it. "Because I can't trust anyone in King's Landing anymore. Not even my small council. Varys whispers too much, Littlefinger smiles too wide, and I don't even know what Cersei hides behind those cold eyes." Ned waited, silent. "I need someone who won't play the game, someone honorable. But I also need someone invisible," Robert continued. "I need you in Essos." "Essos?" Ned echoed, a bit startled. "You want me to cross the narrow sea?" Robert nodded slowly. "There are whispers that Viserys and Daenerys Targaryen are no longer just begging for an army. They may already have one. If they rise, if they come back, my crown dies." Ned clenched his jaw. "You want me to spy. I need you to go as a merchant. A northern trader. Someone who can move, watch, and report. Varys has contacts, but I don't trust him. You I trust." Ned didn't answer immediately. Everything in him, every part of his northern blood, rejected this. Spying, deceit, lies. These were not the Stark way. But Robert wasn't just a friend. He was the king, and there was a storm coming. A month later, under the name Ben Rivers, a so-called spice trader from White Harbor, Ned Stark stepped off a narrow ship in the free city of Pentos. He had never felt more lost. Pentos was a city of painted villas, flowing silks, and sweet lies. The sun was warmer here, the sea air strange to his northern lungs. But Ned had a purpose, and he had already been told who to watch. Daenerys Stormborn Dot. She was just a girl, barely more than Sansa, married now to a Dothraki warlord, they said. A call of 40,000 warriors. It was more than just whispers now. She was becoming a queen in exile, and Essos was starting to notice Dot. Ned watched from the corners of market squares, from balconies, from behind veils of incense. He watched Jorah Mormont trail her like a shadow. He watched her walk through the city with silent grace, and he watched Viserys rage, loud, proud, and foolish. But it wasn't Daenerys who caught him off guard, Dot. It was the spy masters of Essos, the ones who didn't wear robes or crowns, but moved like smoke through the underworld. One of them found him within weeks. "You're not just a spice trader," said the man in black leather, sliding into the seat beside Ned at a tavern in Braavos. "You have the walk of a soldier and the eyes of a man who's seen death." Ned didn't speak. His hand hovered near his belt where a dagger waited. "No need," the man grinned. "We don't care who you are, but we know who you're watching. And we know someone else is watching you." "Who?" "Varys." The name struck cold. "He knew you'd come. He sent word to the Golden Company. And if you're not careful, Stark, you may never make it back to Winterfell again." Ned Stark had never felt more distant from home. Winterfell seemed like a half-remembered dream, its cold stone walls and warm hearths lost beneath the foreign sun of Essos. The taste of salt lingered in his mouth, and every corner of every city felt like a trap. He was used to wolves and snow not. Masked whispers, not men who smiled with blades behind their teeth. The man in black leather, who introduced himself only as Cavro, vanished the moment he dropped Very's name. Like a ghost, he disappeared into the tavern crowd before Ned could demand more. But the damage was done. Varys knew he was here. Ned had trusted no one except Robert. He had assumed the mission was secret, but now he realized how naive that was. Varys wasn't just a whisperer, he was a spider, and this spider's web extended far beyond King's Landing. It reached across the narrow sea, into brothels, back rooms, and beggars' alleys. And now it had ensnared him. He moved cautiously through Bravos, then onto Pentos again, changing his look, slightly dyed his beard with ash, wore darker cloaks, adjusted his gait to seem older, slower, but it didn't matter. The whispers still followed. He'd hear snippets in Valyrian. Northern Eyes, the pale Wolf, the trader who doesn't trade. He had failed as a ghost. Essos had seen through him. The worst part, though, wasn't being discovered. It was what he was discovering. Daenerys Targaryen wasn't just a girl anymore. In a matter of weeks, she had begun changing. The Dothraki didn't just follow Khal. Drogo, because of blood, they began watching her, listening to her. She rode with them like she belonged, and slowly, the men who once sneered at her began bowing their heads. Ned had once thought the girl would be an easy target, that if Robert truly feared her rise, a small group of men could handle it. But what he saw now terrified him. She was becoming a queen in every sense. And then there was the other matter. The Golden Company. Ned had only heard whispers of them back in Westeros. Sellswords, mercenaries, exiled nobles. But in Essos they were legend. 10,000 strong, bound by contracts and hatred of the Iron Throne. And now word was they were meeting with envoys. Targaryen envoys. Ned needed to get closer. He had to know if the dragons were truly rising again. So he did something he never thought he'd do. He approached Jorah. Mormont. It happened one night outside a low fire, where Jorah sat sharpening his sword in a small Dothraki camp. Daenerys and Drogo had moved further inland, but Mormont remained, perhaps sent to secure trade or deliver messages. Ned walked into the camp alone. No weapons drawn. Jorah stood the moment he saw him, eyes narrow, hand already reaching for steel. "You've got the look of the North," Jorah said, almost accusing, "and the walk of a man who's lying." "I don't mean harm," Ned said, voice calm. "I know your father." That made Jorah pause. "I served beside Jeor in the rebellion. We fought for Robert, and we bled together." Jorah stepped forward. "What's your name?" "Ben Rivers," Ned lied. Jorah didn't blink. "No, it isn't." A long silence passed. The fire crackled. Somewhere in the distance a horse neighed. "I'm here to stop a war before it begins," Ned finally said. "I'm here to find out if the girl intends to take Westeros back by fire and blood." Jorah's face darkened. "She doesn't intend anything yet. She's barely allowed to breathe without a dozen men telling her what to do. But she will." Ned leaned forward. "Won't she?" "She'll do what's necessary," Jorah muttered. "What her brother never could." Another silence. You were exiled, Ned reminded him. You sold men into slavery. I did, and I regret it every day, but I'm not going back. Not for you, not for Robert, not for anyone. I'm not here to drag you home, Jorah. I'm here to ask you, is Daenerys a threat to the realm? Will she cross the sea? Jorah looked away, his face caught between loyalty and guilt. If she lives long enough, she might. That answer haunted Ned for days. Because at that very moment, in another corner of the Free Cities, a quiet deal was being struck. One of Daenerys' trusted handmaidens had been poisoned. A raven had vanished, and someone was paying the Golden Company in gold freshly minted and QARTH. Then came the letter, delivered by a boy with one eye and a knife scar across his face. He said nothing, just handed Ned a folded parchment and vanished before it was opened. It read only 4 words. Go home. You're marked. No signature, no seal. But the ink was black as coal, and the parchment smelled faintly of roses, a scent Ned had not smelled since the day he last saw. Littlefinger, panic didn't suit a Stark, but this wasn't panic. This was preparation. Ned packed his things at night, wrapped his blades in cloth, and began planning a route out of Pentos. He had gathered enough to tell Robert the truth. Daenerys wasn't the threat. She was the rallying point. The real threat were those using her name to begin a war, but the spider's web had already tightened. The dock he meant to escape from had been burned. The ship he meant to take had vanished, and a faceless man waited for him in the alley beside the brothel. You've seen too much, Stark. The alley stank of fish guts and spilled wine. Dim lantern light flickered above Ned Stark's head as the stranger stepped from the shadows. His face was pale, blank, forgettable, like a man born to be ignored. But his eyes, sharp and calm, glinted with something older than time. And Ned knew without doubt that this was no ordinary assassin. This was a faceless man. You've seen too much. Stark, the stranger repeated, voice smooth like water over stone. Ned didn't draw his blade. He didn't even flinch. Years of war had taught him when to fight and when to measure a man's intent. This one didn't come to kill, not yet. And yet I still breathe, Ned said quietly. A pause. The faceless man smiled faintly. You breathe because death has not chosen you, yet, but your path leads to it. Ned's hand twitched near the hilt of his dagger, more by instinct than threat. I'm not here to interfere in your order's affairs. I've come only to learn if Westeros is in danger. The question you ask is flawed, the man said. Westeros has always been in danger, from within. And Daenerys? Ned asked. She is a name, the faceless man shrugged. A flame. Many are drawn to it. Some to worship, others to burn. That cryptic answer stirred nothing but frustration. Ned stepped closer, his eyes narrowing. Why warn me, then? Why deliver threats cloaked as riddles? The man tilted his head, amused. Because someone has paid for your death, but no one has paid more to keep you alive. That stopped Ned cold. Who? But the faceless man was already gone, one blink, and he melted into the dark like morning mist. 2 days later, Ned met with Cavro again, this time in the catacombs beneath a butcher's house in Tirash. The air stank of salt pork and mold. Rats scurried over his boots as Cavro leaned on a crate. chewing a stick of dried lemon root. "You're lucky," Cavro said. "If the Faceless set one of their better artists, you'd be floating in the bay by now." "I don't believe in luck," Ned said. "I believe in enemies with long memories," Cavro spat. "You should. There's a price on your head now. Enough gold to buy a fleet. But here's the strange part. It's not from the Targaryens. It's from Westeros." Ned's throat tightened. "Who?" Cavro handed him a coin. It bore the lion of House Lannister, but more than that, it was freshly minted. This wasn't old family treasure. This was coin struck recently, likely in King's Landing. "Cersei knows I'm gone," Ned murmured. "She's trying to bury the secret before I return." "Or Robert told her," Cavro suggested. "Lovers share more than beds." Ned's stomach turned. The pieces were starting to fit in a way he didn't like. The timing of Robert's offer, the speed with which Varys learned, the money now flowing through Essos. It reeked of something deeper than simple betrayal. It reeked of conspiracy. He needed to find a way back, not just to survive, but to warn the North, to warn the realm. One night later, he found himself standing at the harbor in Lice, hood pulled low, cloak soaked through from a sudden rainstorm. A Lysine captain, bought with silver and fear, was ready to take him west under a false name. No questions asked. That was the plan. But as he stepped onto the dock, he saw a small boat drifting toward the shore. A woman sat inside, rowing slowly, her face veiled. At first, he thought it a mistake, some drunk lover lost at sea, until she stepped onto the wood and whispered, "Winterfell remembers." Ned froze. That phrase hadn't been spoken outside the North in decades. It was used only by those loyal to House Stark, even in death. She pulled back her veil, ashen hair, pale blue eyes, a scar running from her cheekbone to her ear. "Asha," Ned said in disbelief, but she shook her head. "Not your niece, Ironburn?" "No longer," she said. "Now I serve only the wolf." Her real name was Lysa Pike, once a spy in the Greyjoy Rebellion, captured, broken, turned. Now she lived only for revenge. "They sent me to watch you," she said. "But I chose not to. I chose to protect you." "Why?" Ned asked, voice low. "Because you don't belong here. Because the war they're building will kill too many. Because the fire isn't the enemy." "The fire? Daenerys?" she clarified. "She's not your enemy, Stark, but the ones funding her rebellion." "They are. They wear lion sigils and drink Dornish wine in Red Keep towers." "You're saying the Lannisters are funding her?" She nodded slowly. "They want war. They want Robert gone. And if the Targaryens come with dragons, so much the better. They think they can win in the ashes." Ned's mind reeled. If that were true, if Cersei or even Tywin was secretly supporting Daenerys, then the entire realm was dancing on a blade. "I have to go home," he said. Now, Lyasa's lips curled into something like a sad smile. "Then come. But we won't go to Westeros. Not yet." "Then where?" "Meereen," she said. "There's someone waiting. Someone who knows the truth." As they sailed east, instead of west, Ned looked back at the harbor lights of Lys, feeling the weight of every lie, every shadow, every breath he'd taken since leaving Winterfell. This wasn't just a mission anymore. This was a game. One of fire, blood, and ice. And Ned Stark had just learned how dangerous it was to play. The sailboat cut through the waters like a shadow under moonlight. For days, Ned Stark watched the sea stretch endlessly, listening to nothing but the creak of wood and the crash of waves. He hadn't spoken much since leaving. Lie's part of him still didn't trust Lyessa Pike. No matter what she claimed, she steered the vessel with the precision of someone who had lived half her life evading death. Her eyes rarely met his, but when they did, they carried the weight of someone who had seen too much and survived only by betraying everyone she loved. "Who's in Meereen?" Ned asked her on the fourth day. She didn't look up. "Someone who wants the dragons leashed, not killed, not crowned, just controlled. Someone with power?" Lyessa's mouth tightened. "No one in Essos has power, only pieces of it. And the ones who think they do are already dying." The city of Meereen emerged like a mirage. Towering pyramids and sharp spires cut the horizon. The stench of smoke and sweat drifted across the water long before they docked. Slavers still moved like kings here, despite Dennery's growing legend across the east. It was a city bloated on blood and denial. They entered through the merchant gates, disguised as spice traders again. Ned had grown tired of that role, but it kept him alive. He walked with a hood low, his face shadowed, one hand on the hilt of the dagger beneath his cloak. Lyessa led him through crowded bazaars and narrow alleys until they reached a garden. Villa surrounded by black stone walls and bronze statues shaped like snakes. There they met him. He was old, bent-backed, yellow-eyed, and wrapped in robes made of spider silk. His name was Mors the Maskmaker, a former priest of Riloler turned informant for coin and prophecy. "You come from the land of snow and wolves," Morrow said in a dry, brittle voice. "But now you swim in a river of dragons and dust." "I came for answers," Ned said plainly. Morrow didn't smile, didn't blink. "Then pay the price." Before Ned could speak, Lyessa reached into her cloak and handed the man a dagger. The hilt was carved with a Stark sigil. Ned's dagger. Morrow nodded, seemingly satisfied. "You seek to know the war before it happens," Morrow continued. "But you are not watching the right players. Dennery's is the flame, Visery's is the smoke, but the spark comes from the west." "You mean the Lannisters," Ned said, jaw clenched. "No," Morrow rasped. "I mean the child you know nothing of." "What child?" "The one Rhaegar left behind." Ned's blood ran cold. "He left no child. He died on the Trident." Morrow finally looked at him, eyes like molten gold. "You still lie to yourself." The room turned silent. Even Lyessa seemed caught off guard. "What are you saying?" Ned whispered. Morrow leaned forward, his voice low and final. "You carry the lie in your blood. The bastard you raised is no bastard. He is ice and fire both." "John." Ned's knees felt weak. His grip tightened on the arm of the chair. He had buried the truth for years, sworn on Lyanna's dying breath to protect her son from Robert's wrath. Not even Catelyn knew. No one did. But here, across the world, a stranger named the secret that haunted his every dream. "How do you know?" Ned asked. "Because I was there," Morrow said. "Not at the tower, but near. Far enough to see the smoke, close enough to hear the screams." Ned wanted to believe he was lying, but the man's eyes, they held no doubt. "If others learn of this," Morrow continued, "they will see the boy as either salvation or threat. If Daenerys lives and learns of him, she will not share a throne, nor a name. She has no reason to hate him, Ned said quietly. She doesn't need hate. She needs power, Morrow answered. And he threatens it. Ned stood suddenly. I need to get back. Morrow raised a hand. One more thing, Wolf. The game is deeper still. The Golden Company, who do you think truly owns them? Ned didn't answer. They don't belong to the Dragon Girl. They belong to a promise. A prince once whispered into a whore's ear that he would return, that his son would take the crown. That son has the company's loyalty. You're saying there's another Targaryen? Morrow gave a toothless smile, or someone wearing the name like a mask. The room spun. It was too much. Targaryens breeding like shadows. Secret heirs, golden companies. And Jon Snow, the boy Ned raised as his own, was not his dot. As they left the villa, Ned couldn't speak. He felt like he was walking inside a nightmare that wouldn't end. Lyessa followed in silence until they reached a quiet alley behind a butcher's stall. You knew, Ned muttered. I suspected, she said. Not about your bastard, but about the game you're caught in. He turned to face her. Why help me? She looked tired for the first time. Because I once believed in fire, I saw what it did. I don't believe in fire anymore. I believe in men like you. They made their way to the docks, only to find them in chaos. Smoke rose from one of the ships. Screams echoed down the harbor. People ran. A body hung from the mast of a small cargo boat, strung up by the neck. A northern coin had been shoved into its mouth. They know we're here, Lyessa whispered. Ned looked eastward toward the sea. Home felt farther than ever. And the game, more lethal with every move. Smoke curled like black fingers into the morning sky. The harbor at Meereen, once sluggish with the stench of fish and filth, now reeked of burned wood and boiled flesh. Ned Stark stood at the edge of the docks, his jaw clenched, eyes locked. On the swinging corpse above the ruined cargo boat, the coin in the dead man's mouth glinted silver. Northern mint, unmistakably Stark. It was more than a message. It was a warning. They're not just hunting you, Lyessa said beside him, breath sharp and low. They're framing you. That ship was headed to Volantis. Word will spread. They'll say the Stark butchered innocents in a foreign city. 2. Turn the free cities against me? Ned muttered, fury simmering behind his calm. Or to turn Westeros against me. Both, she said. Dead men don't spread secrets, but traitors? Exiled traitors who slaughter ports and flee across borders. They're remembered, and they're silenced by kings. Ned's mind raced. Someone in King's Landing wanted more than his disappearance. They wanted his name blackened, his honor shattered. First a bounty, now false executions in his name. They're building the rope for your legacy, Lyessa added. So when they hang you, it won't matter what truth you carry. The realm will cheer. His hands curled into fists. For all the danger he had faced in war, this was different. Here in the shadow of dragons and conspiracies, his sword meant nothing. Every move he made was anticipated. Every path poisoned dot he needed an answer. Something undeniable. Something that couldn't be twisted by the Lannisters' lies or the whispers of Varys. Is there a way to reach Daenerys? Ned asked suddenly. Lyessa blinked. You want to speak with her? If I can't get back to Robert, maybe I can make her see reason, he said. Warn her what kind of war she's walking into. You think she'll listen to a Stark? She scoffed. No, Ned said. But I think she'll listen to a father. Lyessa raised an eyebrow. You still see her as a child, Ned added. But she's not. She's a queen now. And I've raised a child under the weight of a secret. I know the cost of that crown better than she does. For the first time in weeks, Lyessa didn't argue. I know someone who could arrange a meeting. She said after a pause, but it'll cost us more than coin. Gold I have, Ned said. Time I don't. 2 nights later they met Raphael the Whisper Lord, a merchant who sold secrets the way others sold silk. His manse in Meereen's underbelly looked like a ruin, but beneath the crumbling pillars the wine flowed and the knives gleamed. Raphael greeted Ned like an old friend. I heard of you before your name was worth gold, he said, sipping from a golden cup. The North Wolf, the quiet blade, the lord who wouldn't bow. I need a meeting with the queen across the Dothraki Sea, Ned said bluntly. Can you arrange it? Raphael raised a brow. You speak of Daenerys Targaryen like she is a merchant's daughter. She's a girl with dragons and blood. That doesn't make her a god, Raphael laughed. No, but it makes her dangerous. Ned didn't flinch. So am I. Silence fell for a moment. Raphael studied him with calculating eyes. There is a way, Raphael finally said. But you must. Go east. To Vis Toloro, the city of bones. She passes near there in 2 weeks. She stops for water and prophecy. Prophecy? Ned repeated. Raphael's smile thinned. All queens believe in destiny when their enemies outnumber their friends. Vis Toloro rose from the sand like a graveyard of giants, white buildings, long abandoned, bleached by sun and sorrow. Ned remembered old tales of it from Master Lucian, a city built by slaves for mad kings, emptied in a single summer by plague and betrayal. He waited there, hidden in one of the broken towers, dust coating his beard, and sweat soaking through his cloak. Lyessa watched from the opposite wall, a spyglass in hand. Then, on the 7th day, they arrived, Dothraki outriders first, riders like Black Wind, then the bulk of the Khalasar. At its heart, a silver horse, and on it, Daenerys Stormburn. She was not a child. Her hair was braided with bells, and her shoulders held like steel. 3 small dragons perched on her caravan, their eyes glowing faintly in the dusk, and beside her walked Jorah Mormont. Ned waited until nightfall dot. They entered the ruins cautiously. Speaking in hushed tones, the dragons tied but alert. When the fires were lit and the camp settled, Ned moved through the darkness like a shadow. Not even Lyessa followed. He stopped just short of the firelight, stepping out where the guards could see him. And then he did the unthinkable. He laid his sword. At his feet, a murmur rippled through the camp. Swords drew. Dothraki barked warnings. But before any struck, Daenerys stood. Who dares come to me unbidden? I come unarmed, Ned called out, his voice firm. I come not as a spy, but as a father. Daenerys stared, unsure if he was mad or clever. I am Eddard Stark of Winterfell, he said, slow and deliberate, and I have not come to kill you. He could feel the aim of a dozen arrows on his chest. Then why? She asked coldly. Because there are people using your name to start a war you may not even want, Ned said. And I've learned enough to know, if I don't speak to you now, there may be no realm left for anyone to rule. This silence was heavy. Even the dragons watched. "Let him speak," Denry said finally, and for the first time since leaving Winterfell, Ned Stark exhaled not in relief but in preparation, because the next words he spoke would decide the fate of kingdoms. The fire between them crackled gently, a soft sound in a camp that otherwise held its breath. Denry sat tall on a carved seat of bone and brass, a chair that once belonged to some long-dead Giscari warlord. Her silver-blonde hair shimmered in the torchlight. Behind her stood Jorah Mormont, his eyes locked on Ned Stark like a wolf. Watching a bare Ned stood without armor, without blade, but with something far more dangerous, the truth. "I buried my sister with a lie," Ned began. His voice, quiet and grave, carried through the warm night air. "A lie meant to protect a child, her child." Denry's didn't blink. Rhaegar Targaryen's child. The camp shifted. A few gasps. A dragon hissed, sensing the tension. Jorah stepped forward. "That's a dangerous claim." "It's not a claim," Ned said. "It's a confession." He took a slow breath. "His name is Jon Snow, but that's not his real name. His mother was Lyanna Stark. His father was your brother." Denry stiffened, the words slicing into her like a blade drawn slow. "You expect me to believe this?" she asked, her voice still calm but colder now. "No," Ned replied. "I expect you to listen, because the people backing your war already know this truth, and they are not your allies. They are puppeteers." A dragon growled low, its long serpentine body shifting in the sand. Ned didn't flinch. "I was sent here by King Robert," he continued, "not to fight you, to watch you, to see if you were a threat. But the threat isn't you. It's the lie being spun around your name. A lie meant to ignite a war across 2 continents. And why would the usurper send his old friend to spy instead of kill?" Jorah growled. "Because even Robert feared what might come after him," Ned said. "He thought wiping the Targaryens would bring peace. But he didn't understand how many enemies peace has." Denry stood now. Her eyes burned, not with hatred, but with something else, something old, something lonely. "If what you say is true, then my nephew lives," she said. "He's a threat to my claim." "He's a threat to the wrong kind of crown," Ned said. "But not to you. He doesn't want thrones. He never has. He was raised a Stark, taught to fight for others. Taught not to lie. He is fire and ice both, yes. But his heart belongs to the realm." Daenerys turned away, her hands clenched tight. The dragons stirred and Ned knew it then. Her greatest war was not against Westeros or the Lannisters. It was within her. "I've seen thrones made of swords," Ned said gently, "and men who bled the world to sit on them. Don't be that queen." She turned sharply. "And what queen should I be, Lord Stark?" "The kind who waits while others crown themselves with my birthright." "No," Ned said. "Be the queen who chooses peace over vengeance, who burns the rope, not the realm." A long silence followed. The fire crackled. The air was heavy with old blood. Then Daenerys spoke softly, almost to herself. "My whole life I've been told I was born to take back what was stolen, to cross the sea and sit on a throne of my ancestors. If I don't fight, what am I?" "You're free," Ned said, "for the first time." Jorah stepped forward more gently now. "Khaleesi? Perhaps we speak with the Northman more, at least hear what else he knows." But before Denrys could respond, a sharp whistle echoed in the dark. 3 arrows thudded into the sand just outside the firelight. Screams rang out. Dothraki scrambled, assassins, Ned single quotes as instinct took over. He dove for cover as 2 masked men burst from the shadows, blades gleaming. One was cut, down by a Dothraki Eric. The other lunged for Daenery, Sjora, stepped in front. Too slow. Ned tackled the assassin from behind, slamming him into the sand. The masked man snarled, slashing blindly, slicing into Ned's arm. Pain lanced through him, but he didn't let go. He rolled the man, grabbed the dagger from the killer's belt, and drove it deep into his neck. The assassin gurgled once, then went still. Blood soaked the sand. Denrys knelt beside Ned, helping him sit upright. Her hands, surprisingly steady, pressed cloth to his wound. "Who sent them?" she asked. Ned pulled a token from the assassin's pocket. A coin. LANNISTER- minted. Of course. "They want me dead before I speak more," he said. "And me dead before I decide," she added. 3 days later, Denrys stood atop the last ruined spire of V's to Laurel, staring out at the red horizon. Ned stood beside her, arm in a sling, his face pale but resolute. "I don't know what to believe anymore," she said. "Good," Ned said. "People who are too sure become tyrants." She smiled faintly. "I'll send ravens to the north," she said. "Let your John know. If he is who you say, maybe there's another way forward. Not fire, not ice, just truth. And peace?" She looked at him. "We'll see," she said. Then she turned to go. Ned remained for a moment, staring at the cracked bones of the city around him. The war hadn't started yet, but he could feel it. Like thunder on the edge of the sky. He had survived assassins, faceless men, lies that cut deeper than blades. But the hardest part was still ahead. He had to go home. He had to face Robert. Face the Lannisters. Face the realm and say the world you built was founded on a lie. And worse, that the boy he called bastard may be the only hope left for the realm. Winter was still coming, but so was the truth. And for once, Ned Stark would not bury it.